Hi, and welcome to One Simple Recipe, where we're hoping to get you one step closer to better health. I'm Judy Matusky, a registered dietitian and a culinary nutritionist with Athens Nutrition. And it's all about beans today. We are making a bean dip because I feel like, I don't know, I think I'm ready for another dip other than hummus because there's so many things you can do with beans and so many dips you can make. It doesn't always have to be hummus with chickpeas. All right, so this is a very veggie forward bean dip. And what I love about it, it's very colorful. I'm using some white beans that I already have drained. Now the recipe calls for just a can of white beans. Any bean, cannellini beans. You know, white's nice because we're using so many different colored vegetables so that it really makes the dip look a little bit prettier, but you could use any bean. If you wanted to use black beans or kidney beans, you could. Obviously, it's just gonna change the color. I happen to just have a jar of white beans, so this is 30 ounces. You only need a 15-ounce can, or if you wanna double it, obviously you can use more. I'm gonna just follow the recipe, so I'm just gonna use half the amount of beans. The main thing with this recipe is that you want to kind of read ahead when you're making something, because sometimes there's things that you're going to do if you don't read the recipe and then you kind of go, oh shoot. So you want to save the bean liquid for this. So you're going to drain your beans. You can rinse them if you want to, but you're saving the bean liquid because we're going to use that to help make the bean dip nice and creamy. All right, so don't let that go down the sink. We are going to save it. All right, so let's start by just, I have a food processor. You could do this in a blender. I just, tend to use a food processor over a blender most of the time. So I'm just using about half of the beans here because, like I said, mine was double the amount. All right, so that's, I would guess, about half. And now we're going to just blitz these a little bit. This is somewhat of a chunky dip. It's not a super creamy dip. So I'm going to just blitz these a little bit. And now I'm going to add through like the top. I'm just going to add about half of this liquid. This measured out to be about a cup. Maybe I'll start with just a quarter of a cup just to see. And it just depends on how much liquid to use. You don't have to use the full amount of liquid that comes off the bean. It just depends on how creamy you want this, and how thin you want it. If you want a thicker dip, then don't use as much. If you want it thinner, so you really have a lot of leeway here. So I use about a quarter of a cup, and I don't want to over blend right now because I'm going to start adding the vegetables to it, and we'll talk about that. But the bean liquid, just real quick, it's referred to as aquafaba, which is basically just bean water, and it's just a liquid that drains off. It's a liquid that drains off the beans, but it usually has water and salt added. So this is a little on the salty side, so we're going to kind of rely on that to add some flavor. But keep that in mind when you're using bean liquid because it is salty. So you just want to salt with your salt and pepper, or with your salt, just judiciously. All right, I just went ahead just to save a little time. We've got all these beautiful colored vegetables. We have sun-dried tomatoes that I just roughly chopped, a carrot that I just again chopped, a couple of scallions, both the green and the white, and then some garlic, 1 or 2 cloves. I used 2. So these are just going to all go in, and I did go ahead and chop them a little bit more than I said a rough chop, probably a little bit more than a rough chop because I don't want to over blend this, and I want this to kind of break down so that we have a little bit of chunkiness and we can actually identify the vegetables a little bit in the dip. And it calls for some basil. I am going to use cilantro just because I have it right now and I don't have basil. So I'm going to chop this up and use the stems of cilantro because this is so flavorful and so tender. So don't throw those out. I'm just going to, you kind of take them like we've done before. You roll them like a little bit into like a log and then just run your knife down through them. And we'll add some here to the dip, and then we're going to add some just as a little decoration on the top of the dip. Okay, so let's add 2 or 3 tablespoons here into it. And this could be any fresh herb that you want. You could use dried herbs, but I just absolutely love fresh. I don't typically use a lot of cilantro because some of my family members aren't real fans of it, but I had used this for a recipe. I do really like it. I'm just washing my hands. All right, so I want to make sure we have everything in here. We have the can of beans. We have a little bit of the liquid. I might add more. We have 1 or 2 cloves of garlic. We have scallions. We have the carrots, the sun-dried tomato. and then the herbs. Now, I'm going to add the juice of half of a lemon, and to catch the seeds, if you just kind of want to squeeze it through your fingers, that'll kind of catch all of if there's any seeds left over in there. All right, so the juice of half a lemon, which is probably about a tablespoon or so of lemon juice. And now we're just going to drizzle in some olive oil. And this costs about 2 tablespoons, but you could use a little bit more if you wanted to get it creamy. I'm going to use 2. And a little fresh cracked pepper. And then I am just going to use a teeny bit of salt right here. And if you need to, you can salt it more later, but I just want to add a little bit. All right. Now let's go ahead and blitz this up a little bit here. A little pulsing. Yeah, I want it to be a little bit chunky. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right, so the dip is, you can make it smoother if you're not crazy about the look of that, but when we put some herbs and stuff on top of it, I think it's fine. If you want it to go a little smoother, you can. I'm going to go a little bit smoother than that, but you could keep it with some little texture. So I kind of like seeing a little bit of the veggies in there. Okay, so now how do you serve this dip? Well, there's a bazillion ways you could do it. So you could, just as I have here, I just have these gorgeous, I think the idea of this, make this as colorful as possible. And this week we talked about cruciferous vegetables in our nutrition newsletter that goes out weekly, and you can never get enough of them. We're not necessarily using cruciferous vegetables in the dip, but serve them with broccoli, serve them with cauliflower, serve them over maybe a bed of arugula, serve the dip over a bed of arugula and make it and serve it kind of like a salad, and this could almost become your salad dressing, even if you wanted to thin it a little bit more. Now I could have added a little bit more of the bean liquid, but I kind of like it not real. I like it a little, not super runny. But if you added more of the bean liquid, you could make this a little bit thinner, which then almost becomes sort of like a dressing. And so if you're serving this as a dip, you could sprinkle on some pepitas or some crushed nuts on top of this. But because we have already have the cilantro, I'm just going to put that on top. And then, you set this out with your crudité, and you've got your beautiful bean dip that's not hummus. Now, the other thing you could do is if you have some pita bread, like just cut your pita bread in half, and then you would use this as a sandwich filling. So you take this and you fill this with the bean dip, and then you could shred some carrots, shred some cabbage, put some pickled onions in here. You could add some extra scallions. You could, so you could really just, again, fill this with a whole bunch of different veggies in addition to the dip. And then you've got nice combination of flavors, and then it becomes like a little sandwich. You could obviously do it with a wrap. You could put this on corn tortillas, and then you could put a little bit of maybe cheddar cheese on there and do like a little fajita. I just love bean dips because I feel like they're so versatile and you can use them in a lot of different ways, and it's a great way to get your beans because most of us don't get enough. We should be eating a couple of cups of beans a week because the nutritional benefit is just unbelievable. All right, so here's your veggie bean dip. I hope you give it a try. Let me know if you do. I'll see you next week with another super easy recipe. Until then, stay well. Bye-bye.